Hey there, this is James Carberry, founder of Sweetfish Media and one of the co-hosts of this show. For the last year and a half, I've been working on my very first book. In the book, I share the three-part framework we've used as the foundation for our growth here at Sweetfish. Now, there are lots of companies that have raised a bunch of money and have grown insanely fast, and we've featured a lot of them here on the show. We've decided to bootstrap our business, which usually equates to pretty slow growth. But using the strategy outlined in the book, we're on pace to be one of Inc.'s fastest growing companies in 2020. The book is called Content-Based Networking: How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. If you're a fan of audiobooks like me, you can find the book on Audible, or if you like physical books, you can also find it on Amazon. Just search Content-Based Networking or James Carberry, Carbary, in Audible or Amazon, and it should pop right up. All right, let's get into the show.
Hey, welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. My name is Ethan Beute. I host the CX series here on the show, as well as the Customer Experience Podcast. And if you want to get practical, if you want to get some details, if you want to talk org structure, team members' roles, metrics and measures, desired outcomes, and more, you're in the right place. In addition to roles and responsibilities, we also talk about the relationship between customer success and customer experience as a practice, why the approach most companies take to customer success is flawed, and what they're doing to change that. We talk about leveling up your metrics by using the Customer Maturity Index. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Luke Owen. Hey, welcome back to the Customer Experience Podcast. If you've been with us for a while, first, thank you. And second, you may have noticed that we've only had a few folks on the show with customer experience in his or her title, and they tend to be advisors, consultants, speakers, and that type. So today we have a gentleman who has customer experience in his title. We'll talk a little bit about that in particular. He spent more than 4 years in HubSpot in account management, spent 4.5 years as director of customer success at Bedrock Data. He's currently the director of customer experience at Formstack. Luke Owen, welcome to the Customer Experience Podcast.
Thank you, Ethan. Glad to be here.
Good. Really looking forward to this. I want to get into kind of the title, the role, the structure a little bit. And I think there are going to be some really fun nuances to get into there. But we'll start where we always start, with your definition or your thoughts or characteristics you'd identify in customer experience as a concept.
Sure. So for me, customer experience is sort of the heart and soul of an organization that supersedes that relationship with the client, right? And keeps everybody aware of how strong that is or how not strong that is, so that we can put in the right playbooks to make that relationship even stronger. So it's kind of like this holistic view, right? It's not like one team per se. It's sort of an organization that has lots of moving parts, lots of different functions within it.
Awesome. You've done something that I have not heard, I don't think, in asking that question, which is kind of personified in the heart and soul piece. And you tapped into something that is probably one of the most challenging things about customer experience, which is how do we get everyone on board? How do we create a holistic experience across the board? And how do we make sure that all of these different, I forget the term you used, but, departments, teams, silos, functions, parts of the organization are all operating together. Just for context, before we go a lot farther, what does Formstack do for folks that might not be familiar? What are you doing for customers?
Sure. So Formstack, little background, Formstack's actually been around for quite some time. Started around 2006 as one of the first, sort of no-code form applications that you can build, slap on your website to start, getting people to fill out your form on your website. Over the past few years, it's sort of migrated its platform into being way more sophisticated, right? So all the intake data that you would bring in from your forms can now start to be utilized in sort of a back office way to help smooth operations out within an organization. So lots of companies that find Formstack really attractive nowadays are, some of the EDU, healthcare, Formstack's HIPAA compliant. So a lot of these companies that, operationally have a lot of inefficiencies, if you will, haven't quite gotten into the modern world, but now can through like this very sophisticated form application. So it's really the sort of smoothing the workforce, if you will, operations.
Nice. And so as part of that evolution, APIs where the data can then be put into all the places that various people might need it.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. how I got to Formstack was actually through the Bedrock data crew, because we got acquired by Formstack earlier this year. And part of the reason they acquired us, certainly we share the same values and the same mission, but they sort of needed this layer, or needed to make this layer more sophisticated to take that data they're getting from their forms and be able to start moving it around a little bit more efficiently to various systems that some of their customers are using.
Awesome. Love it. And you actually answered a question I was going to follow up with there, which is how did you find them? How did they find you? But that already came out. So for context, what do you do as director of customer experience? I think, your background is in account management and CS in particular. What's in the title for you and for the organization? And maybe then also kind of how are you structured? How do you report up? Who reports to you? Kind of what does this role mean in a functional way?
Right. So the role itself was there before me, of course. So customer experience, but I love the way that they've structured it. So what I focus on is the support organization and the success organization, the success team that didn't quite exist until I got there. There was one gentleman who was doing some, account management, general success type activities, onboarding and things like that, but wasn't fully developed out in any way. So I'm helping to develop sort of that customer success account management component of the experience team, as well as overseeing the support team that, again, has been there for many, many, many years. There is another element to the customer experience team that's also very important to this sort of holistic, view I have of what customer experience is, which is professional services. That's actually being developed. I don't oversee that. I've got a colleague that, along with her and me, are overseeing sort of this whole customer experience team that comprises of, again, support, success, that's me. She runs the pro services. And we have an operations, believe it or not. We have a little bit of a CX operations that I like to kind of draw. I call it like our atmosphere, our protective ozone layer of the CX team.
Cool. And so what does ops do in that scenario? Is that like tech stack and data integrity, or like what is ops in this context?
Yeah, it is sort of the tech stack management, and primarily for CX, at least at the support level, it's Zendesk. So we use Zendesk at Formstack. And so it's really that team keeping that system as healthy as possible alongside some of the other systems that obviously carry our customer data, such as Salesforce.
Cool. So when you get acquired, you get this role, you get this title. What are like 2 or 3 of the first things you did? Like assess the scene, and then like what are a couple things that you said, okay, I'm going to start here.
Right.
And the reason I ask is, so for example, we have a VP of customer success who oversees a success organization and a support organization. And we have directors of both of those functions. And of course, all the probably common rules that fall under those. Your structure is a little bit different. And so if someone is in a situation like ours here at BombBomb and they want to move to a situation like you're in, like when you get plugged in as director of customer experience, what does the scene look like? And what do you think, okay, these are the first 2 or 3 things I'm going to tackle?
So given the support organization had been there and pretty well established by a couple of folks that have been running the team for about 2 or 3 years. One in particular had a strong background with Apple retail. And so she was really running a tight ship. So I looked at that team, and they didn't have a lot to, let's say, fix, if you will, although everything always needs to grow with the team. The company's growing. There's a lot of these acquisitions. There's a lot of moving parts that certainly need to be worked through and worked together on. But she's got a pretty good, along with another manager we recently promoted into the support team since it's growing. So I was really been focused on the customer success management team, since that, again, didn't quite exist besides just one individual. And that's really where I kind of said, okay, we got to get our processes. We got to get our, how are we working alongside sales? For the most part, sales had been the primary sort of manager of clients to some extent. And so here comes along this customer success team, and it's like, how do we work together and really making sure that we're getting that sort of relationship between sales and customer success as harmonious as possible. They, as you know, if you can't make a good experience in that first 90 days, you're in an uphill battle. So we have to really focus in as much as we possibly can on how those two teams are going to work together. So that's really where my focus has been, is kind of getting, and hiring the CSMs. Let's be honest. I got in there, one guy. We now have 5 CSMs. So that was mission critical, of course, when we first got in, is just building that team up.
Cool. How do you organize your CSMs? Is there like, are they tiered based on account size? Like, just when you look to build that team out from scratch, again, I'm asking on behalf of someone that needs to do what you just did. What were your thoughts on how to hire and arrange those?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer it by saying there's a way I want to do it, and there's a way we kind of had to do it to some extent, because, so again, the background is with Formstack, they've gone through a bit of a hiring acquisition spree over the last year. So Bedrock was the fourth or third or fourth acquisition in the last year. So there was a bunch of brands that are now part of the Formstack world. And the customers, the idea is that it's customer success overseas. If you're a Formstack customer, if you're a Bedrock customer, if you're a WebMerge customer, you're a Formstack customer, and we're going to be a customer success manager for you at some level. So because of that, we had to specialize a little bit, so we got 2 people from the support team that, support always can be a great place to look for customer success managers, product driven, so they've got a little bit of that relationship driven, mindset, some of that sales acumen can be a great place to kind of find some success managers. And so we brought 2 folks out from the support team. So one of them just happens to be experienced with one of those brands. So she's focused on that brand as well as Bedrock Data, because they're both pretty technical. And then there's the Formstack core sort of support rep. So she's focused really on Formstack. We did bring one outside enterprise customer success manager who wasn't within Formstack, as a way to, obviously I'm there as a director, but an additional leader to kind of be there along with this really junior team for the most part. So that was the only outside, and she's just focused on enterprise. So some of our more marquee clients kind of thing. So that's kind of specialized, right? So it's very targeted in terms of like what you can work with at a technical level. Ideally, what we'd like to get to is more of it structured at a sort of revenue level. So if you're, paying anywhere from $399 to, $699, you're in the small business, mid-market team or small business team. And then we get to the mid-market, and then we get to enterprise. And it really doesn't matter which products you have. It's more, we're going to tier it in that way. So it makes it a little bit more, you don't have to necessarily think about it at a product level. And that can get a little bit tricky and hairy, because then as people buy more products, then you have to constantly be thinking about, oh, now I got to assign this out over here to this. And then that customer experience just starts to break down. So if you make it more simplistic at a revenue level, likely, customers aren't going to be jumping that often, although you, of course, want them to expand, but they're going to probably stay within a certain tranche for a little while and have that customer experience sort of stay somewhat, hopefully, the same person over time.
Really important. I love that. This idea of being sensitive to, breaking those relationships and starting new ones. The handoff from sales to CS is enough to manage well, and then handling additional handoffs beyond that can be tricky. Cool. It's interesting, the situation here, and I can definitely see you going in the next evolution or kind of the next expansion of the team to go, in the direction that you've described once you have, kind of the brands and product breaks covered a bit and people start to grow. Let's get a little bit into your philosophy. I mean, again, you have a decade of experience in account management and CS, which I guess actually let's start there. I had a conversation with a guy that I work with, and we were talking about CS as, in a way, just being the new language for account management. Talk a little bit about either or both of customer success or customer experience as kind of new languages, or they feel new, especially to someone younger in their career that hasn't seen kind of the old become new again. Talk a little bit about either or both of those terms and kind of what they mean to you from we've been working on customer success pretty much since we've been running businesses, but we have this language and some practices around it. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I'll give you sort of my background, right, is, as you mentioned, or so years at HubSpot, and I started there in 2010. And when I joined, they had this customer success management sort of team that was building out from the consulting team that they had. And for me, I didn't quite know what that meant to some extent. But as I got into the role, it became kind of a running joke that we'd always be like, I'm your customer success manager. And that's just a fancy way of saying I'm your account manager, right? We constantly say it because clients of ours, HubSpot had all sorts of different kinds of customers, from mom and pop shops to, various big businesses. And they didn't know what the heck a customer success manager was. So we ended up actually changing the title at HubSpot, I want to say maybe 2 years in when I was there, or maybe even a year and a half or something like that, from customer success manager to account manager. We said, let's stop having to say that extra thing, right? You guys were account managers. And then, funny enough, and I still had my business card from when we were CSMs, and I never got it changed, who uses business cards and all those times. And then I left in 2015 and we moved back to being called customer success managers. So I think it was kind of like this evolution of the market, just shoving it down businesses sort of, I don't want to say throats, but hey, that customer success manager can essentially mean a dedicated person that helps you with your account over a life period of your account, which is kind of it's account management. So for me, I struggle with it too sometimes, because yes, we have customer success managers at Formstack, but to me, it's not just one team, right? If we had a customer success team at Formstack, I'd probably structure it just like I am doing it with the customer, just like they did it and how I'm adopting it with customer experience. That it is sort of this pillar of foundational functions that evolve around account management and onboarding and customer support, pro services, right? So it's like those things in and of themselves are customer success or customer experience, whatever you want to call it.
Cool. Let's get a little bit into philosophy, and I'll start with, and I've just got a few of these for you. Customer success as a philosophy, not as a function. This gets a little bit back to holism, but I'd love for you to just kind of share your perspective and maybe a couple things you've learned over the past decade around this.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, it's pretty obvious, right? At the end of the day, you have to lead out with the customers. What kind of value are they perceiving, right, to get out of your solution, or what do they want to get? And really centering all of your conversation from the beginning sale, right, all the way to the onboarding and throughout the life of that customer, and really understanding what are your primary desired outcomes, as they want to call it. Like, what do you want to achieve? And sometimes they don't always know. And it's our job to help guide them to what those might need to be. And if we lead out with that, right, and not just say, oh, I have product A, B, and C, and that's what, you woke up one morning saying you need it. We need to really be digging into not this is the product I have for you, but your use case that you have, or your desired, outcomes that you have, I can help you with. And it just so happens these solutions can get you there. And to me, that philosophy has to be throughout the entire organization. It can't just be this customer success team that's carrying that philosophy through. It has to be everybody. And at the end of the day, you need to build the resources to continue to not just say, oh, we've successfully sold them, on letting them say, hey, I can get my use cases implemented with this product, and then we're off to the new client. You have to continue to identify, okay, I got that use case implemented. Now, what's a new one you want to do? In 7 months or 8 months, there's something new. Otherwise, it's just a static thing. Oh, I successfully did what I wanted to do. And then if there's no identification of other new things they want to do, or other goals or other use cases, and you're not tracking that, and you don't have a team that's maintaining that, then that's where the SaaS model breaks apart, as we know. You're just, that long tail is going to get chopped off the minute they get bored of your product. And it's so easy to leave it out. So if you're not keeping that cycle of use case understanding and what they want to get, what their desired outcomes are, and you're not tracking it, you don't have a process, whether that's a human being process, if you're a B2B company selling a large enterprise solution, or some automated team working through and tracking these things, then you're dead in the water over, I don't know how long you're going to be around, but it'll happen.
Yeah. So let's pick up on that. I love the documentation and the continued conversation, or such that you can retain and expand these accounts. Metrics and measures. So, you've got traditional ones like churn and health scores. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the customer maturity index. And when we were chatting before we hit record, you're working on something else. So I don't know how secret it is, but I'd love to know how you see the future of metrics and measures of success. So start with the traditional, go into the maturity index, and then share as much as you're willing and able.
Sure. So right, churn everybody always focuses on, and it's important. We tend to look more specifically at net revenue retention at Formstack. So kind of taking all that into one, consideration. We look at it from a quarter to quarter basis. We look at net retention. So it is a key KPI for us. Don't get me wrong, but I always struggled with it. I think a lot of us do that. That's a lagging indicator. It's not so much what should I be looking out for, where should I be focusing my time. So I stumbled upon Bose Mayor's customer maturity index, I guess about 2 years ago. And to me, it was kind of a light bulb moment in some regard of that. We always were asking ourselves at HubSpot, it's a lot of smart people there, like, how else can I say this customer success team is being success? Like, how are we measuring what the customer success team is doing, and then ultimately leading to our customers being successful or potentially successful, if you will? Like, what kind of measurement can we do? And there's always lots of different experiments and stuff like that, but nothing ever really seemed to stick. And so his idea really resonated with me. Now, what we're doing at Formstack, so I don't know if you want me to go into the details of what the CMI is, or
maybe basics, like a quick drive-by. And again, I'll link up to it in the blog post for anyone that's listening that wants to check it out. Just go to BombBomb.com/podcast,
okay.
And then all the blog posts will be posted there, and I'll link it up. But yeah, just give a couple lines on the CMI.
Sure. So the idea is that obviously everybody knows health scores. Generally speaking, you're building out sort of this score of how healthy is the client based on their usage of your product, right? So it's more of how healthy is that relationship with your customer and your product, which is important. It's great to have that insight. But in and of itself, that's not a great sort of idea of how successful they might be or how happy they might be, or are they a churn risk? You can have somebody using your product like crazy, but still be a churn risk. So he had this idea of the customer maturity index, which would be sitting alongside another access point with the health score that really focused more on the relationship of your customers' abilities to gain value out of your product. How structured are they in their organization? From things like, have they used a product like yours before? Who are the stakeholders? How many are there? Does this go all the way up to the C-suite, or is it just some one employee that's overseeing one department that's bringing this in as an experiment? And what do they need to be successful? And kind of gauging that sort of whatever those attributes are for your business can vary. So it's building that index alongside with the health score gives you this sort of matrix that you can then start plotting your customers on. Okay, they're using our product, but they're not really set up to really understand how to gain that value. Right. So you have all these playbooks based on the 4 quadrants that you have that you can start to play out. You start to think top right, those are people that are using our product and are well positioned within their organization based on their structure. They should be our success stories. Doesn't mean, again, none of this means that these people are happy and they're not churn risk. It just means that's what they should be. And that's our playbook, right? We now to make them happy, they should be our advocates and our referral mechanisms. And then the lower left, of course, are your not using your product, not really structured that well. A lot of effort to go in, right, to try to make those people turn around. And sometimes you have to make decisions, right, in our kind of businesses that you might just have to leave those folks alone for a little bit and start focusing on the areas where you have better opportunities. So that is that in a nutshell, right? And to me, that was an eye-opener to add this extra layer along your health score. Now, how we're doing that at Formstack, slightly different variation that we're starting to play out. And it's very early stages. I don't have any results, but it's kind of being piloted right now, where we're taking this sort of approach of, if you think about this journey, right, of a customer within a company like Formstack or any software, or really any company, I guess, there's all these different periods and milestones that you have that you call this desired outcome, right? I have a desired outcome on a feature. There's a feature I really would like to have so I can do more things with your solution, right? That's a desired outcome. Now, maybe I need it immediately. Maybe it's a nice to have. So if you get it in 6 months, great, whatever it is. But there's some desire there. And then there's also down to minutia things of, I got a support ticket and it's turned into a bug. and it's impeding our ability to really use your product well. So I have a desired outcome of having that bug fixed in a certain time period. Tracking those is really tricky because you've got all of those things happening in various places. But if you're an organization like Formstack, where you're building a customer success component or account management team component, whatever you want to call it, in this sort of layer of customer experience, then you have this opportunity to have this team that oversees their clients be able to identify those desired outcomes and start tracking them and creating literally an activity feed, because that's what desired outcomes are. They're going to happen multiple times. Some of them are going to have more importance to the likelihood of the customer being happy over a period of time. So you can start to kind of envision a similar sort of concept to CMI, where you add a different layer of weighting mechanisms to those desired outcomes to give you that extra index alongside your product usage. And that's kind of where we're focusing our efforts.
Love it. Really, I'd love to follow up in like 6 to 10 months and to see how it's going. There's really clever ways to layer that. Last thing here before we kind of move on to a couple slightly more personal questions for fun. 3 pillars of success here, onboarding, account management, and support are kind of the 3 pillars of success. Where do you see maybe for each of those, where do you maybe see people fall down or missed opportunities or, for someone that's listening, that is in CS or CX, talk about the importance of these 3 pillars and maybe just a pro tip around each of them.
Yeah, I think it's easy for organizations to want to say, right, that they're a unified organization. But at the end of the day, these are separate teams, right? Support has its functions and its processes. Customer success has its functions and its processes, and pro services and, whatever it is, technical services and support engineers, they have their processes and teams and managers. So, we're all under one umbrella, but we have to have this vision, right? That we are one team. Doesn't matter where you sit and where you might be in terms of your responsibilities with the client. At the end of the day, we're one big outfit called customer experience. And I think it's easy to like lose that, I guess, focus and lose that vision sometimes, because when we go back into like our respective teams, we're back into the grind right at the day to day. So it's trying to kind of keep everybody, reminding of what is that vision, even if it's not fully implemented right that moment. And it might still be a little disjointed. And people are saying like, when's this going to happen? When are we going to be like seen across both internally in our organization and externally by our customers as this one big giant organization that can help you grow and be successful with our business? I think it's just continuing to have that focus, even if things they're gonna fall apart from time to time, right? And you just got to keep people's energy up about where we're going to go. And it might take 6 months or it might take 10 months or whatever. So that's the thing. Don't lose hope.
Yeah, don't lose hope. That's good for anyone. It's kind of a fun question that I tend to ask people who specialize, and I've asked it across all 3 of these kind of departments, marketing, sales, and CS. I'll just ask this to you one way. What do you wish, in your experience, more salespeople knew or understood about customer success?
Great question. I love that question. What I wish they understood about is that we're partners with them, and that we're not competitors. We're not in a competitive space. Like, we're not fighting to get the upgrade that you might be also trying. Like, sometimes you get these various scenarios of like sales is measured also on their ability to grow their install base, and then CSMs come along and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What's happening here? Like, are they taking over my relationship with this client? And it has to be seen more as a partnership, and that customer success is there to help really grow that customer together, and hopefully benefits both of us, of course, at the end of the day, but certainly you, salesperson, will reap the benefits because we'll be helping those customers use the product more, and those expansion opportunities and upgrade opportunities will come along the way.
Love it. One team, don't lose hope. So personal question, just because I'm curious, and that's the fun opportunity I have as the host of the show, to talk to smart folks like you. You earned a Bachelor of Science in Philosophy at the University of Vermont. Why philosophy? And is there any kind of unique or surprising way that it's you found yourself somewhere along your career journey and said, man, I'm so glad I have a background in philosophy?
Right. So it's one of those stories, right? Background's easy. How did I get into it? I was a business major starting out, and I hated the professors. Right? At the end of the day, I had a hard time going into that building and actually feeling like I was going to have a successful educational outcome. Whereas on my philosophy classes, I loved all the professors engaged. Going into that building was a breath of fresh air. And so for me, it was like a no-brainer. Like, I don't want to go through this next 4 years not being happy with who I'm being taught by. I'd rather go and have a good relationship with my professor. That was really the big, obviously, at the end of the day, reason why I went to philosophy. I'm somebody who likes debate. I like having the ability to talk to people about my ideas and my opinions, but also listen to them and try to understand their arguments. And I find that aspect of philosophy and what I learned in that process has immensely helped me in what I've done over the last 10 years of my career, working with customers, all walks of life. You have to really understand where they're coming from. You can never assume, right, that somebody knows something that you might know or knows it in the same way, right, and how they're talking to you about it. So to me, that is such a great background if you're somebody who's trying to get into customer service, sales, even just being able to understand how to have those dialogues.
So good. I'm so glad I asked. Hey, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. Love what you're doing. Love that you already have a vision for where you're going while you're, building this team out under, an acquisition and merge situation here. Relationships are our number one core value here at BombBomb and on the podcast. And so I always like to give you the chance at this point to thank or mention someone who's had a positive impact on your life or career, and to give a mention to a company that you really respect for the types of experiences they're delivering to you as a customer.
I've had some really, it's a tough question, and yet I know you were going to ask it, and I've been thinking in the back of my head, like, who has had the biggest impact? And it's kind of one of those things where it's the most recent, I guess, that I would say. When I came into Bedrock, I came out of HubSpot, had a lot of experience, obviously, there with the customer experience, but not a ton of focus, right? If you think about it, it's like a million things that you want to try to do when you get this opportunity coming out of like being an individual contributor and wanting to grow a team. It's like, where do you focus? So I admittedly probably not focused very well when I was first at Bedrock. We brought on a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, probably around 2013, named Alan DePietro. And his background's logged me in. He's had tons of experience in the Boston area in the revenue space, but he really helped kind of hone my ability to focus on working through the problems that needed to be worked on the most. And I would say that experience and understanding that the sales relationship between sales and customer experience, customer success, I owe a ton to that man.
Awesome. How about a company that you've had some good experiences with?
Great experience. Well, if we're talking about from a business software, experience, I myself tend to try to limit how much tech stack I have, to be honest with you. So I don't, I use Salesforce, and I can't say too much about their experience, to be perfectly honest. But, in terms of, I use Evernote. I absolutely love Evernote's. It's not it's a one-to-many experience. It's a product experience, what they do and how they help me guide, like how I can structure my notes and just little things, the tech touches that they do. I think they're a phenomenal company in that regard. I am a big user, though, at a music level. I use all sorts of applications for music. I use, from Spotify to SoundCloud to, I use WordPress for a blog that I used to run. And Medium, so all those companies inspire the heck out of me, at a sort of, how do I make the experience? How can I somewhat, replicate some of those experiences that those companies do, like Spotify, Netflix, and those companies, and bring it into the B2B space, obviously with not the data scientists that they've got, but sort of be able to replicate that in some level.
Awesome. So a takeaway there for anyone listening is look around you, because you have everyday experiences that could be, if you're a little bit more conscious or intentional about it, you could apply the things that you're experiencing yourself and turn those into practices and experiences for your customers every day. Luke, this has been awesome. How can someone connect with you or follow up with you and or with Formstack?
Well, I'm on Twitter, pretty active on Twitter. My handle's Kip Owen. That's Kip from a nickname throughout high school and college, and just never goes away. Might as well keep it. So at Kip Owen, if you want to ping me there. And also on LinkedIn, it's pretty simple, /Luke Owen.
Cool. And Formstack is formstack.com?
Formstack, yep, luke.owen@formstack.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for your insights. Continued success to you. Love the journey that you're on, and I really appreciate your time with us.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I'm never disappointed when I ask what more salespeople should know or understand about CS, or what marketers should know or understand about sales. If you want more conversations like this one, subscribe to the Customer Experience Podcast in your favorite player. And if you want to go deeper into this episode or any other, visit BombBomb.com/podcast. We break down every episode with write-ups and video clips and a whole lot more. That's at BombBomb.com/podcast. My name is Ethan Beute, and thanks for listening to the B2B Growth Show.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.